let's go into anti-natalism a little bit. I was just thinking, life is like the most overrated thing in the world. It is so overrated. And when I think about anti-natalism these days, I often think about these two really super old women that were on the news. One of them was black, one of them was like Russian or something like that. And they were in the news because they were like really, really fucking old. Notice it's women, right? Because they get to live longer. That's actually not a female privilege at all. You could argue. But in conventional terms, the fact that women live longer is a privilege. But anyways, it's not like people are killing themselves, right? Once they get to a ridiculously old age. But, like these women, the black one was like, like this enthusiastic white guy reporter or whatever was in her face, like, how do you feel? You're 199 years old or whatever the fuck she was, And she's like, what did you do all your life? And she's like, work for white people. And I was just like, damn, that's what you have to say after like a century plus of life. Like this old, droopy, just awful looking woman, like her wrinkles are like, she basically looks like wrinkled leather, and they're kind of wailing her out, kind of parading her around like, oh, she's so old, look guys. That's the problem with normies. They mistake quantity of life, in other words lifespan and shit like that, with quality of life. Any person with sense would rather live 50 good years than live 50 good years and 20 awful years. I mean, come on, that's just common sense, right? But it's just so hard because we have that urge to survive. That's the only reason suicide is not as more popular. But anyways, that was the first old woman. The other old woman is this woman, probably some people who are listening to this will be familiar with. But the like this Russian woman or whatever she was, she was basically like, yeah, I only had one happy day in my life, and it was the day that I moved into my house. And, probably even that wasn't a happy day. I mean, one happy day out of, Jesus, how many days does a person who's 120 years old have? I'm not good enough at math to be able to do that in my head. 123 times 365. Even that, if you just have one good day out of all those days, that's not even a good day. You can't even really count that, But anyways, back to anti-natalism, I swear I brought that up for a reason, which should be obvious. Basically, life is overrated. The consequences of stopping a good life from existing, in other words, by not having a child, the consequences of stopping a good life, potentially good life from existing, are fine. The consequences of creating a miserable life are not fine, in my opinion. I think, you can never live that down. Of course, normies ignore that. And they say it gets better and all that stuff. And, mothers tell their sons tell their sub-7 sons how beautiful and handsome they are and how they're going to have women all over them when they get older. And that's what they want to believe. Meanwhile, they're encouraging you to develop a career and make a bunch of money because they know, hey, he's going to need that in order to compensate for his low SMV. He's going to need to make money. But, it's just the ultimate outgrowth of ego. Ego is not a bad thing inherently, but I think natalism is like a negative manifestation of the human ego. And of course, this goes into Buddhism and all this stuff. Normies think anti-natalism is some new shit. It's just some new shit that people want to be edgy, But these kinds of philosophies have been around forever. And another thing is how it kind of ties into abortion, anti-life versus pro-choice versus... You notice the terms are politicized with abortion. Pro-choice. Oh, how could you be anti-choice? And what's the other one? Pro-life. Oh, how could you be anti-life? I am anti-life, No, and I have no shame in that. It doesn't make me edgy. Thinking for yourself and going against the grain Okay, maybe it does make you edgy, but not in like a bad way. You know, the real edgy hipster kind of person is the one who goes against the grain but ends up following the same trends as the other million hipsters out there. That's what I think, at least. Like, pretending that life is this great, inherently great thing is a cope. Life is shit. And I'm not just gonna sit here and lie to myself about that. I'm sorry. No way. I even think life is shit for a lot of these people who live supposedly great lives. And, you know, social media has created this facade, this, you know, cope that we kind of allow. We perpetuate with like these false personas and like, oh, look at me on vacation, I'm living my best life, blah blah blah. But it's like, life is shit. Your life is not that good. You know, and maybe I'm coping just by saying that, and I'm actually like just being, you know, just being like a coper by saying, oh, all those people are just actually living shitty lives. But I've seen it, you know, I've seen it myself. Like, I've seen what goes on behind the freaking scenes of these people who take these Instagram photos and all this shit. Happy people, if they exist, or like people who have good lives, not necessarily happy people, because anybody can be a delusional, happy idiot, right? They're probably too busy enjoying their lives to actually post and virtue signal on Instagram, or like stealth brag about their lifestyle on Instagram. But anyways, on this whole teen angst and like life is shit thing, that's actually why I say teens are smart, because they're just old enough to be cognizant of how shitty life is, but they're just young enough that they haven't blue pilled themselves into being tolerant of the shittiness of life. And, you know, normies always will shit on you for being like cognizant of how shitty things are and say you're being immature and all this shit. But it's like, no, you're actually seeing things for what they are. It's like coping is not a sign of maturity, in my opinion. I mean, look at older people. By and large, they're clearly not happy, but they seem very content to lie to themselves and engage in like the social media posturing and peacocking that I was talking about before. This kind of segues into Wagecucking. And the bachelor man. It's like, it's never enough when you're a man. It's just never enough. You don't got a job, you need to get a job. You get a job, you need a better job. It's like, you, as a man, they always want to keep you plugged in, like keep you on that hamster wheel. Whatever you do is never enough. They want to keep you like running and just like keep you occupied, keep you like producing, and hopefully keep you occupied enough that you never stop to think like, what am I even doing this for? Who am I doing this for? You know, and that movie Fight Club goes into this quite a bit, I find, which it was a book originally, I think, but yeah, like paying rent, not enough. Like, whatever you do is never enough. And it's kind of like, there's no point in even bothering to live up to other people's needs or desires or whatever. It's just never enough. So, like, you have to always be making moves. God forbid you ever settle down and be content with yourself. This is the modern world. And, you know, if you ever do just kind of like lay down and rot or whatever, or not even that, you know, you probably do some other thing, like just collect money in some kind of money, some kind of income or whatever. And people will say, that's when they come out with this whole, oh, wasted potential, you know. Potential to do what? Potential to be exploited by people who don't care about you. You know, and the younger you are, the worse it is. Young people have more energy to be stolen. You know, young people are It's a crime if a young person does not allow themselves to be exploited by this world. It's a young man in particular, I should say. This really kind of only pertains to men, I find.